In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Hey there, I'm the real Jason Duncan. Welcome to the Root of All Success podcast. We're shooting this here at the Matador Room at the Standard at the Smith House in Nashville, Tennessee. The Standard at the Smith House is 18,000 feet of Southern sophistication and style, owned and operated by the one and only Joshua Sterling Smith. It's the largest antebellum home still standing in downtown Nashville, and it's one of the world's, or certainly in the United States, but one of the world's greatest cigar clubs and steak restaurants. And it is fantastic. I'm honored to be here. And I'm honored to be able to shoot this here. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not watching this, I want you to go to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/C/TheRealJasonDuncan, C for channel. youtube.com/C/TheRealJasonDuncan. And I've got a whole playlist of just these podcasts where you can see how cool this room is. You can see my guests. You can see what we're doing and talking about. And it's a great way to consume the content here at the podcast. So this is my big thanks to the Standard of the Smith House for letting us shoot here. Today's episode is sponsored by Nurture 360. Now, I want to ask you a question. So if you're like me as a company owner, you're really tired of CRM systems that give you way more bells and whistles than you need. They're complicated, they're very expensive, and you're like, I just want this stuff to show me where my customers are in the process of the sales pipeline. Well, Nurture 360 is what you need to look at, and that's NERCHER 360. So go to nurture360.com and look at them. I found this company when I was looking for a new CRM, and I was absolutely blown away. And the best part, I think, is that you don't have to produce any reports. Everything's there on the live dashboard. As the owner or as the sales leader in your company, you can log right in and on the screen see everything. You can see where your individual producers are. You can see where your whole team is in terms of production. And it'll even give you, and this is the best part because we had created this in Excel because no other CRM did this. It'll even show you your probabilities or your percentages of closing between stages in your sales process, which I think is kind of cool because if you're going from prospecting to setting up the initial meeting, from initial meeting to your pitch, like how good are you doing between those meetings? And it'll even show you that. So go to Nurture 360, that's NERCHER 360.com/root, as in root of all success, and you'll get a special discount on the subscription and get to try it for free. And the guys there at Nurture are amazing. You're going to love them. So make sure you go check out Nurture 360. We're proud to be syndicated on the C-Suite Radio Network. They are one of the top and premier sources for business podcasts and C-Suite leaders and business leaders. And so we're proud to be a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. So now, on with the show. Today's guest, I'm going to talk about this dude. This dude's pretty cool. Now, not every guest that I bring on the show do I know prior to the show. Some I do, some I don't. This one I do know, and I have been. It's been an honor to get to know him. He and I are both members here at the Standard Club, and that's how we met. And I was so impressed by his story and his character and just being a great gentleman. I invited him to come on the show. But he grew up, he actually was born in Maryland and then grew up in Salem, Massachusetts, which town? And he became a 3-star athlete in high school playing basketball, even got a top spot on varsity in college, but had to put his basketball dreams on hold because he had a daughter coming into the world. So he became a dad at age of 19. But then he also began his sales career, and he became very, very good at sales really, really quickly. And he became so successful that he was able to do things he didn't think he'd be able to do. He even made a brief pivot into the music industry at one time where he was a manager and a label owner, but then he went back to corporate America, landing a job as another top producer, became a director in a publicly traded research company. and he found himself there again excelling, and was in charge of a $50 million annual revenue, and he was doing fantastic. And he went back to college, got his bachelor's degree, even spent a year at Harvard, which is really cool. And as this high-level full-time director and a full-time dad, he somehow found some time to dabble into real estate a little bit. And his dabbling into real estate turned into what is now a growing empire in real estate development. He started in flipping and doing some rehab work, and now he's got a real estate development company here in Nashville that's thriving. He currently sits on the board at several different organizations here in the Nashville area: the 808 Education, the Collective Global, the Historic Buena Vista Community Association, the Row on 12 South. He's also an owner and partner in several companies: the Nashville Development Partners, the Sales Elite, Top Tier Sneakers, and Guerriere Development. His hobbies are mixed martial arts, so don't mess with him, sports, traveling, day trading, music. He's also a published author of a book called Coffee for Closers, which we'll touch on a little bit today. He's also the co-founder of Chivalry Magazine, and he's passionate about giving back to the community. And like I said at the beginning, he's a gentleman, and I've enjoyed getting to know him. He's passionate about investing in the next generation. So it's my honor to welcome our guest today, the great Amani Kelly. Thank you for being here, Amani. Glad you're here, man.
Jason, thank you very much for that introduction.
Well, you are quite welcome, because all of it's true, and you look amazing. I love the jacket. So if you're not watching this, you gotta tune in just to see how sharp he's dressed today. So tell us, as we get started with this, Amani, how in the world does somebody go from teenage father to real estate mogul? Like, what? We're going to talk about all the steps, but tell us a little bit in your own words how that went down.
Well, maybe desperation is a word to say. Having no choice. I think, being and coming into the world as a young individual, as a young father, I had to make a decision of what I wanted to do. And I had no education. I just had a child, and I knew I had to do something for this child and set a good example. So I think I did everything under the sun to try to be successful. I self-taught as far as like reading the Wall Street Journal and watching CNBC and Fox News, and just understanding the vernacular of business people, and then eventually getting into some sort of like professional roles, starting in car sales.
Car sales. So is that the first kind of major thing you sold, was cars out of college?
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Prior to college.
Oh, prior to college, okay.
So it was a terrible experience. I sold cars for about a year. It was, when I sold cars in the 90s, it wasn't like selling cars today. Like, people did research now, and you can't schmooze them, and you can't dupe them. Back then, it was the Wild West, and leadership wanted us to basically steal from people. Oh. So it was not a fun experience, but I excelled at it during the time, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah. So your journey as an entrepreneur, at some point you transitioned from corporate to entrepreneur. So how did you tell us a little bit about that transition? So there was a point at which you were selling, you sold cars, went to college, you were still selling stuff, and then at some point you transitioned to entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, so it kind of starts when I was in, let's say, 5th grade, right? I had a paper route, and I had a small paper route selling the Salem Evening News back in Salem, Mass, the Witch City. Uh-huh. And so I asked my mother for $150, $200. I bought out the rest of the paper delivery in my area. So I ended up having the largest paper route in Salem for the Salem Evening News up until my freshman year in high school, when I stopped selling papers. So throughout high school, I did personal training. I became a certified personal trainer. I trained my family and friends for $25 a session. And then from there, I was doing like MLMs, multi-level marketing, Market America. I think I did everything under the sun. And I think it's always been in my blood to be an entrepreneur, but I think you have to put the cart before the horse, essentially. And with me, I had to get that real, true business experience working for the companies that I've been blessed to work for, and then really hone my skills and then move that into entrepreneurship, like true entrepreneurship. So I always knew that there was going to be a point where I would separate from the corporate world and start to like move on my own.
So I want to talk a little bit about MLM. I now remember a story you told me when we met one time about the car sales. I won't ask you to tell that story again, but that was a funny and terrible story all at once, which I'm sure many listeners could probably identify with. But the MLM, let's talk about that for a minute, because I did not know that part. And I think MLMs get a bad rap, and for good reason a lot of times. But here's what I know about them, because I was like you. I was a hustler right out of high school and college. I'm trying to figure out, I could be a millionaire next year if I have enough people to my house to show them these things or whatever it is. But here, the bad rap or not, dude, there's some really great sales training inside those organizations. Was that your experience?
Absolutely. I agree. Like they bring you in, they have these conferences, you get the energy, like they do train. Some better than others.
Right.
But I've found my experience is if I'm going to work hard, I'm going to work hard for myself.
So what do you do now? Like, I know I kind of pitched in the intro kind of you as this guy that went from corporate America sales into kind of dabbling in real estate to now building an empire in real estate development here in Nashville. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and what keeps you busy.
Yeah, so I'd say my main focus is real estate development and investing.
And what does that mean? Like, I hear lots of people say, I'm in real estate development. What are you developing? Well, tell me, because there's different ways to do that. So how are you doing it?
Yeah, so ground up, getting land and doing builds anywhere from 15 builds to 250 builds.
And are you doing commercial? Or are you doing residential combination?
So it's a mixed use typically, but residential mixed use.
All right. And that's through your own company that you started to do that?
So there's the caveat right there.
All right.
So I've been working for myself completely. So I still have my development company, and it was a smaller development company. But most recently, I've partnered with the Guerriere Development. Okay. So now I'm a percentage partner in that company.
Oh, okay.
So we have approximately 1,000 units that we're going to build over the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow. And Nashville, for those of you guys that are not listening from Nashville and you've only heard about it, it is unbelievable. I'll tell you guys a story, and I know Amani will appreciate this too. Is I was on Instagram, like scrolling through Instagram, people I follow, and a lot of people I follow I don't really know, but you know how it is. And they were having a party on a rooftop in a city, then you could see the skyline in the background. And so they were all dancing, and it was kind of funny. They were doing these like TikTok dances and stuff. So I was watching this, and I thought, well, that's a cool skyline. Where are they? And it was Nashville. I didn't even recognize it. And I've lived here my whole life. I know you grew up in Maryland and then in Massachusetts, and then you've been in Nashville for a while. But, man, I've been here my whole life. And, dude, it is completely different.
Yes.
So you're part of that development, that growth, because there's so much opportunity here. So what these 1,000 units you're going to do? What are they going to look like? What is it all mixed use? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So it's spread. The 1,000 units are spread around. I think it's about nine projects. So some projects are like 300 units. Some projects are 150 units. So it varies, and the product does vary as well. So some of the products are like single family, cottage type homes. Other products are like townhomes, like row houses, and then we have like build apartment complexes as well.
So this show is called The Root of All Success, and the concept here is that I want to dig into how you grew such a successful real estate development company and now are partnered with another very successful company. I mean, how you grew that. So I'll start by asking this question. Would you define success in your own words? Like, what does that mean to Amani Kelly?
Yeah, so, I thought about that quite a bit, right? And the way I look at it is I've had failures and I've had successes. But because I've had failures, does that make me a failure? No. And because I've had successes, does that make me successful? I don't know if you're using the same, thought process. It doesn't. So my definition of success is continuously thriving and striving for success. So from the outside, looking in, would someone say, is he successful? Yeah, maybe, probably. But would I call myself a success? I'd say that I'm always looking for better and stronger successes.
So if you're always striving for success, I'm going to dive in a little bit more. So what does that mean? Like, what you're striving for something and it's different than failure, but what is it? Like, to you, what does that mean?
Well, I think with success, it's are you successful in this? So, for example, you could say, all right, my goal is to generate X amount of revenue through this company. Yeah, that's a goal, and that's a success, right? But you can also say, I'm successful with, for example, developing my daughter and teaching her how to really understand the real estate game, right? Getting her on board to real estate. So I would be successful in that if she took it upon herself to really do the homework to understand it. But outside of that, I think that the success it's based on each individual thing or item that you're looking to create success in.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And you know what? Honestly, you're the first person to say it to me. I probably knew that, but I didn't think about it. But just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure. But just because you succeed doesn't mean you're a success either, generally speaking. So I would agree with that. But I think that what you just said is so important, and a lot of people miss it, is that success is not defined by one single thing, one single metric. A lot of people define success by finances, and that generally is what you hear. Hey, he's super successful because he drives a Lamborghini. Well, that doesn't mean he could be a jerk, and he could have like debt to the hilt. You don't know what the deal is. Mm-hmm. But success is, I loved how you said about your daughter. If your goal with your daughter or your desired outcome of your daughter is X, whatever X is, if you do that, you're successful. Right. And so you can be successful in every, multiple arenas. And as an entrepreneur, your job is, hey, I want to be successful in for you, it's real estate development. Mm-hmm. So for you, hey, if I successfully build these developments out and I make a lot of money, we help the clients that move in, I'm successful. So my next question always is, well, do you consider yourself successful? I know you already kind of answered that, but I want to ask it again very specifically. Does Amani Kelly consider himself to be successful?
I think I've reached a certain level of success, but I'm looking for more success.
Yeah. What's the one big thing you're hoping to accomplish in the next year to 18 months? Like, what's that? You got anything special?
I'm actually mentoring someone right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and for me, it would make me feel really good to see him thrive in his business and then pass off the knowledge to the next generation or pass off the knowledge to the next person. So just paying it forward.
That's fantastic. I too am someone who really tries to invest in people, and so I can appreciate that. One of my theories about success, no matter what your arena is, one of my theories starts, first of all, with the definition of success, meaning that success is achieving the results you hoped for. Mm-hmm. So, if my goal for this interview is I want to ask these questions to get them answered, and I want Amani to enjoy this experience, well, then I'll be successful at the end of this, I hope.
Right.
But so success is really achieving the results you desired. Mm-hmm. So, in that terms, you have been successful in multiple arenas. You're successful as a basketball player, as a kid, successful as a father, successful as a car, maybe not as a car salesman.
No.
But you were successful in all these areas. So my theory is this, that there are, in every entrepreneur's story who has achieved certain levels of success, that would be agreed to by society, generally speaking. Hey, yeah, he is or she is successful. Mm-hmm. That they go through these 5 same things every time. And what's interesting about this, and that's what the whole podcast is built on, is that I stumbled into this, and a lot of it has to do with being a member here at the Standard and meeting and rubbing elbows with such amazingly successful people like you and I get the pleasure of doing every time we come here. Is that I would start just casually talking to people about, like, how did you do it? And what I find is that these 5 things appear every time. And it starts with this concept, and I turn them into 5 Ps, like mm-hmm. They all start with P. And you can go to the 5psofsuccess.com to read more about it. But the first P is passion. And so I'm going to ask you about your passion in real estate, because passion is kind of twofold. There's this emotional state of passion where it's, yeah, I'm excited and I love it, and I can sense that in you about real estate. Every time we talk about it, I get it. I sense that. I also got it when you're talking about mentoring. For people not watching this, like your body language changed a little bit. You could definitely tell there's an emotional side of passion you're excited about. But the other side of passion is an actual it's not emotional. It's a mental state where you are willing to endure. So like going back to the way the word passion originally came from, etymology, it says that passion means willing to endure. Like the passion of the Christ wasn't that he was excited to go to the cross. It was that he was willing to do it, and there was a greater cause. So in your story, tell us where your passion first became evident for real estate that led you to success, whether it be emotional passion or just this mental willingness to endure and suffer for what you want.
Yeah, so I think with real estate, I think it started with the whole mental capacity. Like it's something that I could wrap my head around. It was tangible. I can understand it, and you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to do it. At least the capacity that I was originally doing it in. So I could touch it, I could feel it, and for that, and I could see the fruits of my labor after the fact, turning something from ugly to beautiful. And that's really where I started to get passionate about real estate. And then I started cashing checks from real estate too, and then I really got passionate.
That'll do it, won't it?
Yeah, but I do believe it really started with just creating something nice. And I'm not a very creative person, but seeing it go from start to finish and making a 180, it's amazing.
Would you mind kind of if we peel back a little bit on the layers here? All of us have failed. There's nobody sat in that chair across the table from me that hasn't failed, just like I failed.
Yeah.
So, but your ability to withstand that failure and continue on is what makes you successful. That's what I'm talking about with passion. Has there been any stories of failure that you would share to encourage people to listen? Like, hey, this happened, but I pushed through because I was passionate about the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I hold no qualms about talking about this, but back in 2003, I think it was, that's when I really started getting into real estate. I took a bet on myself and started buying properties, and back in Boston, and I bought a lot of properties off of being speculative. I was flipping notes essentially, so buying contracts, getting contracts under agreement, and then selling those contracts to developers. And then I was also buying dilapidated homes and rentals as well. About 2005, I just got too over my head in properties and lost my job, and I had to go bankrupt. So I lost all my properties that I had. I had to go to renting a small apartment, and it took me a little while to come back from that, as far as financially, mentally, physically, and I did get through it. And then I took another bet on myself, several years later after my credit was good again. And this time I was smarter about it, so it was lesson learned.
So the lesson there is that, for people listening to this, and a lot of people who listen to this are entrepreneurs or they're wanting to do something, they're just trying to get inspiration from somebody's story like you to say, okay, this dude got overextended, over-leveraged, whatever the issue was, found himself in bankruptcy. Yeah. Like not just, hey, I screwed up and I lost some money, like lost it all.
Lost everything.
and including your credit score, right? Yeah. I mean, everything. Yeah. And yet, you're like, I'm going back, and I'm going to be amazing. And now you're here in Nashville, and you're killing it.
Yeah.
So that passion is the key. Like if you didn't have passion, you wouldn't have been able to do that. Because if you were like, this hurt too much, I'm going to go back to selling cars, or I'm going to get in the precious gem business, or I'm going to sell clothes or something. Like you're great at sales, but you might have, without passion, given up on real estate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first transaction after everything transpired was a little scary, but I haven't looked back since.
So passion will push you through fear, push you through failures, and that is why I believe in my theory on the 5 P's of success is that it's the first and most important one. Yeah. If you don't have passion, your probability of success is really minuscule. You can have all the other keys, but that passion will be the thing that pushes you through. So the second key, the second P or the second key to success that I find is that being in the right place at the right time. And so you grew up in Salem, which I've never been to Massachusetts. I would love to go. I've never been there, so I don't know much about it. You gotta go. Yeah, I've heard, like we've planned several trips to go up that direction.
Yeah.
And then never end up working out. My wife and I take our RV and we go all over the country. And I'm like,
do it.
we need to go up there, go through Boston, go through Massachusetts, go into Maine.
Yep.
I love it. I just haven't done it yet. So this right place at the right time. So it goes without saying that Nashville is the right place, the right time for real estate. But you have been here for a while, and that's not where your journey started. You didn't just start real estate development in Nashville. So tell us a little bit about how right place at right time really played into your story of success.
Yeah, so first, I think being at the right place in the right time has to do with hard work and dedication, right? So essentially it's luck. So you're creating your luck, you're creating that based off of hard work and dedication, which puts you to be in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. That's my definition of it. I've been here for 4 years, and I came here with the previous company that I worked with and to open up an office. And I saw all the growth happening here, so I'm like, I should participate in this growth. I know real estate, and it took me about over a year to get into the real estate game here, and I bought a few properties, more so around rehab because I was still working for a company. And I think that I was brought here, obviously, for that business, but I was brought here for a reason to help with this growth in Nashville.
Yeah, so I guess I forgot that part of your story, that you've really only been in Nashville for 4 years.
Yeah.
So your rise, fall, and rise again in real estate really was not even here. It was in Massachusetts. You started there,
Yep.
grew it, failed at it, grew back again, and then you moved here because you were working for another company, which I think is a good side point to make for the listeners, is that you're an entrepreneur, but you didn't. There's several ways to enter entrepreneurialism, right? There's one, hey, all in, I'm done, no more W-2, no more nothing,
Yeah.
I'm all in. And then there's the people that kind of straddle both sides of that and quite successfully make it happen. It sounds like that's what you did. You were working for another company, doing real estate kind of on the side,
Right.
And today you've experienced a lot of success because of that. So been in Nashville 4 years. Nashville's definitely the right place at the right time. I was just talking to a guy the other day about, and I'm not going to mention names because you will know who I'm talking about. The listeners won't care. But there's a very high-end real estate dude here in town. It's always in the newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
that is about to build a building just down the street right here. And we were talking about how much the skyline has changed and how much these lots around, even where the Standard is located, it's completely different. Like across the street, the new
Yeah.
federal courtmehouse
Oh,
is
yeah.
going in there, or I guess it's not a federal courthouse. Is it a federal, or is it just a federal building?
It's a federal building.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a federal courthouse, but it's going in right across the street. I mean, it's changing so much. So you had this passion to push through the failure because there's an emotional state and there's also this mental state that you love it, but you're also willing to suffer through it
Mm-hmm.
when it doesn't work. Then you right place, the right time. 4 years ago, coming into Nashville, okay, you're at a good spot to do that.
Right.
And now the third P that I typically see in people's stories is about people. It's about knowing the right people. And I think that there's this misconception a lot of entrepreneurs have, is that you do it on your own, and that's not the case. I can't point to any successful entrepreneurs I ever interviewed, casually or formally, who can't at least point to one person and say, that guy, that girl, they were the ones that kind of helped me get to this spot. They might not have done they didn't give you any money, they didn't give you a job, but there was something about your connection to them that took you to that next level. Do you have a person like that?
Yes, so bit of a story. I was a little bit arrogant about people. I always thought it was what you know, and it is what you know. What you know will get you in the door, but the people will really help you out. So I ended up, and even prior to moving here, I was still arrogant about that. And moved here, met a gentleman who sort of took me under his wing, Terrence Moody, and kind of showed me the way and the importance of the people and who you know and how these people are going to help you maneuver and throughout, wherever you're trying to maneuver in, but also you can help people too. So I've really taken that to heart and get to know everybody on a personal level and try to help out whoever I can as well.
I think that I love it when you name the person. Like, not everybody I ask will name. So you said Terrence Moody. So hopefully if he listens to this, he'll hear his name and know that he had that spot in your story of success.
Yeah.
But I don't think people understand that, man, you probably one connection away from a completely different life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you meet that guy, and now, of course, you'd been in real estate before, right? But you meet that guy, and whatever it was that he did and introduced you to and showed you and taught you, like, your life's completely different. And I just, I love what you said. It's you count it luck, but it's funny, and I think you would agree with this, is that the harder you work, the luckier you get.
That's
like
right.
The more people you rub your elbows with, the more you're going to find the right person. The more places you go, the better your network's going to get. Your network is your net worth. And you are a walking example of that statement.
Absolutely.
All right, so Amani, the fourth P that I kind of look at in terms of, like, there's passion, and there's being in the right place at the right time, and there's knowing the right people, but there's this other thing called preparation, and you already alluded to this a little bit. It's having the know-how to pull it off. So a lot of entrepreneurs have this, they're wantrepreneurs. They've got this grand idea, but there's no way in the world they could ever execute it because they're not prepared. They don't have the know-how. Like Elon Musk, one of the richest dudes in the world, one of the greatest entrepreneurs ever, but had he started SpaceX 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that wouldn't have worked because he didn't have the know-how yet. You can't just start a space company and fly people to the outer space without having some know-how. So for when I say that one of the keys to success for entrepreneurs that I'm finding is that they have a know-how, a certain ability to pull it off. Maybe they don't know everything, but they've got this know-how. So in real estate, that's kind of your level, your avenue of success. What was it that, like, how did you know how to pull it off? Well, how did you get prepared for real estate?
Talking to people, right? Networking, reading a lot of books, watching a lot of YouTube videos, and then just going out and doing it. So
I love it.
I did make some mistakes, especially in the beginning, for sure. But I learned from my mistakes. So some of my mistakes were going to college, paying for college essentially. But I learned something from it, And I say paying for college, I mean the mistakes that I made were expensive enough that it was like going to school, paying for school.
Right.
But I bounced back from it and I learned.
Yeah, I tell you that the stupid tax that we all pay, the things
tax
that we do that are dumb, and then we pay it. I know that I've paid a lot of stupid tax, and there's some that have lots of zeros on it, and I wish I'd have never done it.
Right.
But then I guess if in my more cogent moments, I would think, it sucked, but man, I learned something through that I would never have been able to teach other people. Like I've got a part of my backstory. This interview is not about me, but part of my backstory is a really, really bad part of my backstory, and with business. And dude, that experience was the worst of my life. I probably lost a decade of the longevity of my life because of that time I went through. It was about 18 months just with pure hell, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And a lot of it was because of mistakes I made. It wasn't because the other person, it was mistakes I made. Now they had something to do with it too, but now, like, I'm kind of weirdly thankful that it happened, because I wouldn't be where I am today interviewing someone like you had I not gone through that, because it wouldn't have pushed me to this place. So thank you for being honest about that. All right, the fifth P, Amani, is plan. So there's this passion. You got to have passion, whether it's emotional or mental. There's being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, being prepared, which is having the know-how. But then there's plan. Now, in real estate, what I mean by plan probably is more important than in any other venture or any other industry, is that I don't mean business plan. Because a lot of entrepreneurs think, oh, dude, I got to go write a business plan. Okay, if you're taking on investors or venture capital, you probably are going to have to do that because they're going to want to see it.
Right.
But without that, business plans are really irrelevant. All the businesses I've ever started never had a business plan, and I've been very successful at those. So I'm not talking about business plan. What I'm talking about is your strategy to obtain and deploy financial resources. So in real estate, you can't build 1,000 units without a plan. And I'm not talking about the business plan. I'm talking about the ability to get resources. So when you started, and this is where I want to really dig in, because I'm an aspiring real estate investor myself. When you started back in Massachusetts, and even now here 4 years ago in Nashville, what was your plan to get money to do it? Because you can't just go buy something for free. Like, you've got to have money. So tell me about how you did that, because I think a lot of people would be interested to know how you planned to get into real estate with money. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, and I love that. You got to plan to work and work to plan, right? And it's not a business plan, that's for sure. So for me personally, with having different resources for money. So I went to hard money lenders, private lenders as well, and friends and family, and then spreading my network out. Some wealthy individuals or some individuals that have access to capital. So I really put a spreadsheet together of the appetite for each of those types of individuals. So it would be an individual from, that has up to 100,000. They're in one column of my Excel spreadsheet. Individual that has 100 to 250, they're in another column, and so on and so forth. So then, depending on the project that I was working on, I know who to call right away or present the opportunity to, and say, hey, do you want to invest in this project, or do you want to be an owner of this project?
So when you started that, so first property that you purchased, you did, I think you said it was like a rehab or a flip, is that right?
Correct.
So is it okay if we dive in a little bit on the financials?
Sure.
Just kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
So how much was that? How much of that first property, the first property you bought in real estate, do you remember how much that cost?
It was $135,000, and I took out my whole 401k for that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I bet on myself.
So, but it didn't take 135 to buy it. Like, it only took a portion of that.
No, 135 to buy it.
It took $100. it took $135, $1,000 of capital to acquire that property.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. So how much was the property valued at when you purchased it, or did you buy it at value?
I had to add value, so I put about 100 into it, a little less than 100, and I sold it for 330. So I did pretty well on that one.
So that'll get you addicted.
That's cashing checks, man. But that was also one of the ones I had a big lesson from as well. Like, I was too trusting. I'm a businessman. I shake your hand, I look you in the eye. It's happening. My word is my bond, right?
Right.
I got ripped off. So I would have made more than that if I didn't have to change GCs in the middle of the project, or rip me off for 30 grand. So,
oh man.
So expensive lesson.
So you leveraged a retirement plan, 401k, that you had built up through your very successful career in the corporate world.
Yep.
You built up this 401k. You cash it out to the tune of 135. Buy this property, get screwed a little bit along the way, but you still made out okay. Like, it would have been much better.
Oh.
Still made out okay. So your plan was I love that you say you bet on yourself. And entrepreneurs, that's part of the passion. If you're not willing to bet on yourself, like, I've got a couple startups I'm working on now, and I got so much money into it. I'm like, okay, I believe it's going to work. But so you mentioned a couple of things that some people may not know what that means. So you said hard money, and your friends and family, and that type of thing. So what's a hard money lender in the real estate space? What does that mean, so that people know what it means?
So basically, a loan shark, let's just say that. They loan money, and I'm saying that in jest, but they loan money at a high percentage rate, and typically short term. So 3 to 6 months at a percentage rate, I've seen them up to 15% interest only.
Right. So if somebody's listening, they say, hey, I've got this deal. I want to get into real estate. I want to be like Amani Kelly. I want to buy this property. I don't have a 401k. There is the opportunity to do hard money. So you can find these people that have hard money by getting involved in real estate investors groups, et cetera, networking, and you find somebody and they'll say, yeah, I'll loan you $100,000 for 6 months to get that property bought. And then at that point, you could be able to refinance that and get the cash back out, pay off the hard money guy. That's the way that kind of works.
Yeah, exactly.
And then friends and family, I think everybody kind of understands that concept. If you go to mom and dad, you go to Uncle Clark and say, hey man, I need $100,000 to buy this property. I'll give you a little piece of it if you do it with me, right? Is that kind of the deal?
Exactly. Yeah.
You have any bad or good stories you want to share about that?
Yeah, my first flip, the one that I $135,000, I didn't have money to fix it up. So I bought it in May, and I'm like, I'm a sales guy. Everyone's going to want to jump in and help me. Or I went to my mom, wouldn't give me any money. Went to my friends, wouldn't give me any money. Because remember, I was a guy that was coming up with a lot of ideas and different hustles. So this one was just, to them, another hustle. And so I had to save up my own money over up until January of that following year. I finally had the money, and I did the work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny, dude. This is a callback to the multi-level marketing. That's the negative side of it. When you get involved in multi-level, and if you start going to all your friends and family, they're going to think that it's just another thing.
Yep.
Another thing. You become a member of the NFL club, the No Friends Left club. Nobody wants to talk to you.
That's right.
Here he comes. He's got some Amway crap he's trying
They
to.
look the other way when you walk by. Yeah, that happened to me.
Oh man. Well, but you push through. You learn, and that's how you do it. So, what about you moved to Nashville? So 4 years ago, you moved to Nashville as a corporate employee.
Mm-hmm.
How much real estate were you doing at that time, whether it was in Massachusetts or otherwise? Were you doing any at the time 4 years ago?
I was. So I still had projects in Mass that I eventually liquidated within, I think it was a year or something, but I was still in projects there. So kind of it took me a while to get into real estate here, but I was still doing it there. So it was kind of okay. So I didn't really take any time off outside of not finding something here.
Mm-hmm. So, but you were definitely walking that. You had the corporate side going, and you were making a lot of money on the personal entrepreneur side,
Yeah.
just doing real estate properties. And now you're in Nashville. So in Nashville, how did you plan in Nashville to get into the Nashville market? Nashville market, I would assume right now is probably more expensive than Mass, but I don't know I don't know what's going on up there. I mean, it's high ticket here, but how did the plan to obtain and deploy financial resources to buy properties here, how did that happen in Nashville?
So I liquidated everything in Mass. So I had a good chunk of money to be able to start to invest in properties. I originally wanted to just do rentals when I was here, just accumulate doors and get the mailbox money. And then, so I bought several properties once I finally got into the game, and then decided that, I want to do some flips. Yeah, why don't I do some flips, make some money doing some flips on the side. And then I actually left the corporate world in 2019, and I had a few flips in my back pocket and realized I never want to do flips again.
Not for everybody.
Yeah, it's just not for everyone. It's just not strategic, and it's just the amount of effort you put into it. It's just not for me. It's not for everyone. So then I started to get into larger developments shortly after leaving the corporate world, and it's been good ever since.
So the flip side, I mean, in Nashville, you could buy something for as little as $100,000 to $200,000. You can buy something for $500,000, flip it.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that in the commercial development space, we're talking a lot more than just 6 zeros. There's a lot going on in these things. So what plan? I mean, how do you? I mean, you don't have to give away any of your secrets, but how are you able to do that? Because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening. Like, I want to get in commercial. I'm tired of doing flips too, but that's a big leap to go from just doing a $150,000 house to selling for $300,000 versus buying a blank piece of property and building an $8 million facility or property on it. How does that work?
Leverage. It's very simple. So, for example, let's say you're buying a plot of land that you're going to develop, 30 units. You buy the plot of land for $1 million, you put 20 to 25% down, and you finance the rest. So typically, when banks or private lenders are looking at these developments, they will look at your cash flow, how much you're putting into the deal, and if the deal is good for them. It's low risk. So in that example of a $1 million acquisition, and then 30 build would be around 15 million, something like that, 15 to 25 million. If the bank agrees to that, they're all in. So it's all leverage. So all you've put in is $200K into the deal, plus some ancillary fees, but you're good to go.
So how much time? I think part of the plan too, the strategy to obtain and deploy resources. Mostly it's financial, but there's also the time resources. So when you're doing flips, residential flips, to me, as someone who's aspiring to get into the real estate game, that's something that I think people like you can accomplish with a corporate gig and do that. But it sounds to me like that when you're going and doing a $25 million build out, you can't. That's pretty much a full-time deal. Am I wrong about that? How's that work?
Well, not necessarily, right? So there's a colleague of mine that he is a he's a builder, but he builds like 4 units here and there. But he'll have 4 units going. He'll have 3 plots of land with 4 units in each plot. All he does is he finds the properties and he has a builder. He still works full time. He has a high level job, and he just has a builder and they go build it. So he's there at the sites and so forth, probably daily, but he's working from home and he can go do that as well.
Okay.
But if you're getting to like 25 million, like larger builds like that, then chances are it's your full-time job, or you're in a group, like an investment group, or you have several partners.
And that's where Gary Air Development comes in for you, right?
Yes. So Gary Air they have been doing some large builds around Nashville for some time now. So it's 3 of us, and we're adding more to the team, and we're all doing our own specific duties.
Right.
But really, a lot of it is finding land, finding the deals, and pushing forward with the deals.
So if somebody's listening and they're an entrepreneur who wants to be a real estate entrepreneur, or they're wanting to get into it, what's your 2 or 3 pieces of startup advice you'd say? Okay, if you're going to get into real estate, do this or do this or do this. What would you tell people?
I think it depends on what aspect they want to get in. So I had this exact same question from someone else. Someone that's like, I want to get into real estate, but I don't know what I want to do. Well, I'm like, first you got to figure out. So he's looking at either being a realtor, an investor, or a developer. And I'm like, well, you got to really determine which one you want. So if you're looking at those three different careers, there's different things you're going to need to do. But I'll say, like, if you want to be a developer, you really got to understand land and land use, and understand how to get value out of land, what the density is for these properties. So can you increase the density? What's the neighborhood calling for? What does the neighborhood need? So really getting into like the political aspect, getting in with your council people, understanding the land use, the value of the land, and what could complement the neighborhoods as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of strategies involved in that. So how do you start with that? I think you do a lot of reading, you do a lot of listening, you watch a lot of YouTube videos, maybe do some seminars, and then I'd say partner with someone on a smaller scale. Then you can start to grow the business.
All right. So you just heard, listeners, what he said. Okay, if you want to do it, you got to figure out what your passion is, right? What are you willing to suffer for? Like if you want to be a developer, it's completely different than being a real estate agent or a general contractor or a flipper. Those are all completely different. You got to figure out what your lane is. And then you got to rub elbows, right place, right time, figure out where you're at. You got to meet the right people, whether it's politics. If you're going to do development, you're probably going to need to know the politics of the community, right? So you've mentioned that, the knowing how to do it by getting on YouTube, going to seminars, investing the money. I mean, I know that there's a real estate seminar somewhere online every flipping day.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Like listen, if you can't figure out how to learn how to do real estate online, you're not looking in the right places. And then the partnering with people, I think for financial deployment of resources, of course, is important, but it's also you're going to learn. You're going to learn so much. So, as a successful entrepreneur who has made it really well in real estate, where did Coffee for Closers come in? Because I love the book. I love the concept of the book.
Yeah.
And I think it was early in your story, but I want you to tell the listeners, because they can look it up on Amazon. It's called Coffee for Closers with the number 4 in it, right?
Yep.
It's Coffee for Closers. So tell us a little bit about the book, where it started, how it came about, and all that kind.
So the thought came up in around 2011. I remember sitting at my desk. I was an individual contributor, account executive, and I was in a research firm, so I was talking to a lot of startup companies, technology startups. And I think I was 35, 36 at the time. And I remember just getting off the phone with this CEO of this startup. He just got $50 million in funding, wasn't the nicest guy, and he was 27 years old. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong in my life? And I just pretty much got berated on the phone. I'm like, I need to do something. I need to figure this out. I'm going to start a sales blog. Okay, well, no one's going to come to my sales blog because no one knows me. I'm going to write a book to drive people to the blog. And then it just materialized from there. So I took about a year and a half to write the book. Coffee for Closers. I actually got the name from Glenn Ross.
Oh yeah, everybody's seen that.
Yeah, right. Put down the coffee. Coffee's for Closers, and finally, after noodling on it for some time, having it edited, finally released it in November of 2013.
Wow. So did it work? Did the book drive people to the blog the way you wanted it to?
So I never did the blog. It just ended up being the book. So the book became its own entity. I did some library and some bookstore talks about it and so forth. So it became its own thing, and that was my thing. I'm going to be an author now, and then it's going to be great. I'm going to be on the best-selling list, and then it just became like, all right, it's a cool concept, but let's move on to the next thing.
And they can buy this on Amazon. People can look it up right now, right?
They can look it up. I think I mentioned that it's probably a few pages back now because it's so old, but you can still find it on Amazon.
And so it's about, so it's about selling, of course, and closing. So what's kind of the thesis of the book?
So it's not going to teach you how to sell. There's so many books out there that are saying, oh, here's how you sell, here's the process of selling. That's not what it is. It's really for salespeople. It's about salespeople. But essentially, when you talk, if you're not talking to a salesperson, they think that you'll do anything. You'll give your firstborn, you'll bite off your arm to make a sale. So it's explaining who's the different types of salespeople, but also for salespeople like yourself, like you're having a bad day or you're just like, I just can't deal with today. There's stories in there, basically in all different sales professions at all different levels of stories of their days, what their days look like.
So is there a real estate book in the Amani Kelly future?
There's definitely a part two. I've been looking at the part two of maybe Coffee Still for Closers, and I think there will be some sort of real estate component to it as well.
Yeah, I've read several real estate investment books. I'm sure you have, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to be reading those things. But a lot of times they're too, I don't even know, too much. Like they just need something to like. Okay, let's break through all the noise. Like, what is it about? How did it happen? Let's talk about. Because I think in real estate, because I happen to be, that's one of the things I'm interested in, is that I want to know how people did it. Like when you went and bought that first X thousands of dollars of property, how did you do it, man? How did you? So I think those stories, if you're an author, I think people would love to hear, especially a successful real estate guy writing about, that's how I did it. This is my story. I bought this, cashed in the 401k. Mom wouldn't give me any money. You to go through that, and then who you meet, like Terrence. They meet these people and how they contributed to the story. So I would encourage you, one entrepreneur to another.
Yeah. Think
about doing that, man. I would be interested in that because of the content and because I know you. What's tell us about Chivalry Magazine, because I know you're what's that?
So it's the defunct Chivalry Magazine.
Okay.
So we myself and my partner published that in 2001, and it was a let's say like a Maxim magazine for the Boston area.
Okay.
So we were there for a couple of years, but it was dedicated more towards nightlife, so forth in the Boston area.
So you're involved in several different boards here in the Nashville market. So you've got your real estate thing going on. You've got I'm encouraging you to write a book again, but you got a lot of boards that you sit on. So talk about some of the boards and what's going on with those things.
So I think my favorite board is the historic Buena Vista Association. So Buena Vista, which is part of Nashville, right across from Germantown. I'm the vice president there on this board, and we do anything with the neighborhood. So promotion around the neighborhood, dealing with the developers in the neighborhood, and I think why I really enjoy that is because it has to do with the community, helping the community out, but also the real estate piece of it too. Like seeing how these developers are working with the neighborhood associations or not working with them. So I think that's fun for me. And then also sit on, 808 Education, which is Norman Merrifield is the CEO of that organization, and he has a product that really goes in to educate the educators. And I find that fascinating because it's helping educators how to work with and be more effective with their students as well.
How long have you been on? I mean, there's several that I saw on your bio, and I listed at the beginning. That's several. Like, how long have you been doing kind of the board thing? Is that the whole time you've been here in Nashville, or what?
The oldest one I've been on is 3 years ago, so the collective.
Yeah.
So just 3 years.
Well, I think that one of the lessons in that is that, you're a guy who's passionate about giving back to the community. You've talked about mentoring, and you've got a guy that you're mentoring right now. But part of that is there's more of a formal opportunity to give back through serving on boards. And as an entrepreneur, you have more opportunities to do that. Where as a corporate employee, corporate employees don't have as much time to go to those meetings because a lot of those board meetings are going to happen, during business hours
Right.
or early, and you can't get to it. So I think one of the things for entrepreneurs is to look forward to is that you're not just doing this to make $1 million or become a multimillionaire. It is, I get to give back. I get to do stuff that I want to do. Like, I get to make the world a better place. And I truly believe, and I think you probably do too, that entrepreneurs are the ones who can really change this world for the better. And it's not just making money. It's you're putting a product or a service out into the world that's going to serve people. In your case, it's real estate.
Yep.
You're giving mixed-use developments, real homes and businesses where people can thrive and grow and create memories. But then you can take the money that you're obviously being blessed with as a result of that, and you can do great things like write books, and you get on boards, and you can do mentorship programs. So I love that about you, Amani. I'm so glad to know you and glad that you're doing that. As we kind of close out our conversation today, is there anything that you want to kind of say about just entrepreneurship or success in general that you think would benefit the listeners that kind of relates back to things that we talked about today?
Yeah, I'd say that betting on yourself, we touched upon that. Always bet on yourself. The house always wins, right? But also adopt a mantra of, and I'm going to quote Jay-Z here, difficulty takes a day and impossible takes a week. So if you think about that, nothing is impossible. It's just going to take you some time to think through that. If you adopt those two things as an entrepreneur, you will be successful in whatever you do.
That is great advice from the great Jay-Z via Amani Kelly. Well, there you have it, everybody. That's our show with Amani today. So my theory about these 5 P's of success still stand true, because even in someone's story like Amani, who's in real estate, he didn't start a brick and mortar business. He didn't start a tech business. He's doing a business that I think all of us have heard about, but we don't completely understand unless we're in the real estate gig. But he has seen how passion and being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right people and being prepared and having a plan worked to his success. And now he's a great, successful dude here in the Nashville market that's killing it in real estate and is doing things on boards to give back to the community in ways that he wouldn't have been able to do had he not taken the time to follow his passion and go down this road of entrepreneurship. So I hope that as a listener to this podcast, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on any of the podcast players that this thing gets pushed out into, that you'll be encouraged by Amani's story. And I would say this, if you want to know what your probability of success is, wouldn't it be great to know, am I going to be successful at the thing that I'm trying to do? Well, I've created an assessment called the 5 P's of Success assessment. And it's free, completely free. You go to the 5psofsuccess.com, and it's the number 5, don't spell out the word, but the 5 P's of Success, and P's is P-S. I know I got to say it because if you're listening, you don't really know. But the 5psofsuccess.com, you can take a free assessment. There are 17 questions that kind of go through all the 5 P's. And at the end, you get a report that says, hey, based on the way you answered this is your probability of success. And, a lot of times those reports come out and they say, hey, your passion is really, really low in this area, but it seems like you know some really good people. So you might want to pick something else that you can leverage your network better or leverage where you live better. So it will give you what you need. And then on the other hand, there are times the report comes out and it says, dude, your probability of success is off the charts. Go for it. You're going to do this. So if you want to know how to do that, go to the5psofsuccess.com. You can take that. You can also find that at my website, therealjasonduncan.com/success. Either place will take you there. If you want to hook up with me on Instagram or LinkedIn, I'm at The Real Jason Duncan. But this podcast, The Root of All Success, is all about talking to people just like my guest today, Amani Kelly, about how they got to success. So I want you to join in again next week when we talk to yet another super successful entrepreneur about how they grew an amazing company and how these keys to success played into their story. So until then, remember, Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.